Now, let's shift gears and talk about something that affects every brand, every campaign, and every connection you make with your audience. Diversity isn't a box to tick or a fleeting trend. It is a real, meaningful opportunity to engage authentically. But how do you create messaging that resonates without feeling forced or, well, cringy worth? How can brands speak to varied audiences in ways that feel genuine, respectful, and relevant? In our next session, Diversity is Not a Trend, How to Market Without the Cringe Factor, our panelists will share their experiences, examples, and practical strategies to help brands communicate inclusively and effectively in today's multicultural world. Please join me in welcoming our panelists to the stage. We have Yvette Schmitter, CEO and co-founder of Fusion Collective. We have Catherine Tuominen, I apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly, founder of Catalyst Brand Strategy, Pty Limited. And then we also have Todd Morris Fowler and Giovanni Gonzalez. Let's give them a huge round of applause and welcome them up to the stage.
We had, because I am total planner, we had the panel planned out. Some of our panelists were not able to attend. So Dr. Fowler and I are going to have a conversation about the same topic, but it's going to be us two. I will be adding color commentary because I'm going to stay in my lane. I am Black in America. That's about it. Marketing is all him, so I will defer to the expertise, but add my color commentary as a citizen here. And we will like to open up to questions since it's just the two of us. Raise your hand, yell it out. Let's just have a great conversation for the next 20, 25, 30, whatever, how many minutes we have here. All right, so I know you, Dr. Fowler. How about you introduce yourselves to the crowd?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. T. Maurice Fowler, CEO of Fowler Media Group, and I am an award-winning author and poet, and I've been writing since 1995. I enjoy the space of marketing, and diversity is very interesting. You know, it's not what everybody thinks, but we'll get into all of that in a moment.
Anything else? That's it?
That's it.
All right.
As far as introducing me, yes, but we'll get into the topic.
All right, so you kind of know who I am by my name, but I'm going to tell you where I'm from. I built my first computer from junkyard scraps when I was about 9 years old. I grew up in a family where my history is sharecroppers, juke joint owners. My grandmother had a fourth grade education. I was the first one in my family to graduate from high school, graduate from college, get an advanced degree, and then get a doctorate degree first. So coming from first, having an 8-year-old want to go to the library to learn how to build a computer kind of didn't sit well in my household. But they told me it wasn't for girls like me. Loaded, but wasn't for girls like me. But I proved them wrong because I ended up leading the engineering teams that built the digital athlete platform by AWS for the NFL. This is my third startup. I was a former partner at PwC. And I've always been around AI, especially building the digital platform for the NFL. And so when I asked ChatGPT to do what hundreds of thousands of people have done, turn me into this action figure, you know, photorealistic, it gave me Jensen Wang's face. Jensen Wang. So I think back to that. I could have, you know, had the keyboard confidence and posted about it and then, you know, kept on and then went on my merry way. But I decided to do something about it. And so where do I get this from? I get it from my great-grandma who ran a juke joint. And if you haven't seen Sinners, I'm not plugging them, it kind of gives you the whole juke joint experience. And she was tough and mean. But that's how I got the idea to see my legacy is pattern recognition. And so I can identify patterns in AI. And so I see things that AI miss, but also other people miss because where I came from. My name is Yvette Schmitter, and yes, I am CEO and co-founder of Fusion Collective, and I've protected to date, over 2 million people from algorithmic harm and bias. I've saved clients millions in lawsuits, prevented, and risk mitigation costs. And I advise governments on both sides of the Atlantic. Yes, the ones down in DC. And we've built something in my company to kind of help everybody. And so my company, we do make money, but I'm not in it to get rich. I'm in it to make sure that the end users for this AI apocalypse is for everybody. Not those who can afford it, not those in the data set, everybody. So, I'm here because I don't ask for permission, and you can blame it on my great-grandma, to be in spaces. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how diversity, our lived experiences, how AI is going to come in. That's my coffee shop spot. It'll be the AI piece comes into it, and Dr. Fowler is going to tell his experience about how he started in the U.S. in the 90s when DEI wasn't a buzzword now on the ban list, how it works, and then how it's turned into what it is today. So let's start talking about what happens when we take control of the conversation and we pivot. So Dr. Fowler, before we go there, there's not a packed room, but I like it because it's nice and cozy. So how many people in this room have heard or been in a meeting where someone said, we need to reach diverse audiences? Yeah. And then like 30 minutes later, you saw the campaign that came out, and you were just like, what? Okay. Yeah, we've all been there, right? We've all been there. So diverse audiences, and I did the math, and because I love receipts. So diverse audience in the U.S. alone control over $5 trillion in spending power. Count the zeros. 5 trillion. So this isn't a nice to have. And if you want to be all capitalistic, you're leaving money on the table if you don't market and include in your data, in your marketing campaigns, in your strategy, a $5 trillion market here in the United States. And this is your market. And this market can smell performative stuff miles away. You will never be invited to the bar book queue, okay? We can see it, smell it. So you've been in these meetings, you want to include the diverse audiences and the diverse markets, and you come up with something that's like, So Dr. Fowler's been in marketing and DEI from the very beginning before DEI became a term. So Dr. Fowler, he built the diversity strategy for Hyundai, is that correct? Hyundai?
Alcoa Fujikura Limited for Ford, Mazda, Subaru, Packard Trucks.
Okay, cars. Okay.
Automotive, yes.
In the 1990s, right, before it became an intern, okay? Before the whole people and belonging mantra came out in corporate America, he was delivering the diversity in the 90s. And so that wasn't a trend.
No.
So, tell us about being inclusive really started before it became the trendy, then it became the banned word.
Thank you very much. One of the things that's very interesting is that diversity actually started in a very unknown space. It started in psychology with Sigmund Freud, okay? As all of you know, Sigmund Freud is the father of psychotherapy and is the standard that psychologists operate under today. And it was his nephew, Edward Bernays, who came along and took his uncle's writings on the mind and turned it into information that could be used to cause people to buy. So the first campaign that he did was, interestingly, when we talk about diversity, the number one category or demographic is women, okay, is women. And what is interesting to me, why I said in the beginning when I was introducing myself that diversity is not what you think, women, if I'm not mistaken, are not the least of the human beings on planet Earth.
No, we are
Okay.
49.978%.
So
of the
how can
population.
they be, the minority? But, okay, it is what it is. So Edward Bernays came up with a campaign to get women to smoke cigarettes in the 1920s. And that began the marketing to diverse communities in the 1920s with cigarettes. So Edward Bernays showed corporate America, okay, you don't sell a product. People are not interested in a car. They're not interested in a suit. They're not interested in shoes or a nice iPad. They're interested in a feeling, okay? They're interested in an image. They're interested in feeling inclusion, right? So when women could smoke, I mean, did that lift them out of the social condition that they were in? No. But smoking a cigarette was something that they could choose. And with each puff, when Virginia Slims came along with the slogan, "You've come a long way, baby." But what? From smoking, not smoking to smoking. But we're talking about a feeling. We're talking about an emotion. And this is what people buy. So when we deal with diversity, one of the things that we have to understand is that depending on the market, you're not really dealing with anything diverse. First and foremost, human beings are human beings. And in my world, people are people. There's only one race, and that's the human race. So when you take out all of these walls, everybody's got to eat, everybody's got to drink, everybody wants to get around some kind of way. Everyone wants to do some similar things. So you target understanding the demographic, okay, and you target those people. Now, right now, Pepsi, as a good example, is running advertising to this point to the market of the Latinos. Okay, Latinos is my market. So I'm listening to the guys talking about, todo está mejor con un Pepsi, right? So one thing I realized, they have different Latinos, and what they're showing in their commercial, that even in Latinos, you have diversity. Because you orale ahí va, that's Mexico. And then you have a person speaking Spanish that sounds more American. So they're connecting the market inclusively by using American Latinos, Latin American Latinos outside of the United States. Y todo está mejor con Pepsi. Everything is better with Pepsi. And they're talking about the food and their different tortilla, and this one has this style, and that one has that style. So, and it's a very good commercial. And I applaud Pepsi for doing it. Now, recently I noticed Coca-Cola has come along, and they're doing something to kind of pull back. But if anybody's been in Latin America, you know, and from the littlest, smallest rinky-dink town, you're going to see a Coca-Cola sign and 50 people drinking Coca-Cola soda. So, Pepsi has a lot of work to do, but it's a really great start. So when we move now into the 90s and 80s, when I got into the game as a young kid, and, this is a tech session, and I will state for the record that my start is in tech. I went to computer programming school when I was 18, and then the United States Air Force after that. And my tech skills are, I was wicked with MS-DOS skills. Anybody remember MS-DOS back in 1980s, and when the IBM PC XT showed up on the set? Well, I was that 18-year-old kid that could make that machine sing. So I would get these older guys in their 30s say, "Kid, you know what to do with this thing?" And I would just smile and make it dance. So what happened was, diversity became an issue. There were some high visible societal situations that occurred. And then I was given the task of implementing diversity in the entire North American organization, which is United States, Canada, and Mexico. So as a young kid, then in my 20s, I would get people in rooms like settings like this. And I can tell you, 8 hours of talking about play nice in the sandbox is a hard sell. And in my later studies, it's nothing to do with people really being anti-anybody. It is 100% about the paradigms that have formed in people's minds over the decades of their lives that they have built from childhood of their parents and like Dr. Yvette said, their grandparents, okay, that have told them, and these have become systems because your paradigm actually says to itself, if you change, you will die. And this is why I have been out of corporate America, out of that setting back in 1991. It's now 2026, and we're still having the same conversation. It's not that people don't want to come forward, don't want to be nice. We've been dealing with the wrong element in corporate America. It's paradigms. And I've just wrote a book called Paradigm Shift. I'm not marketing the book. I'm just giving an example. Until you shift your paradigms, this is going to continue as far as people not wanting to play nice in the sandbox. So this is the problem when we get to marketing. We're not looking at human beings. We're looking at colors, we're looking at religions, we're looking at genders. And the last time I checked, colors don't spend money, religions don't spend money, genders, it's people. If you take the focus and put it on people and connect with the people authentically with who they are, they want to spend money. You know, there's someone right now with $1 billion that's looking for someone who knows what to do with $1 billion. And there's someone with $1,000 that's looking to buy something with that $1,000. Okay, so if we stop with well, you know, we have to have a hierarchy. There is no hierarchy. Dr. Yvette just said $5 trillion. I want a piece of that. How about you? I want a piece of that $5 trillion. And see, the problem is, you know, I'm Fowler Media Group, which is my company. In media, you wouldn't even think the other communities have $1 billion. But the truth is, when 2008 came and the government had to bail out the banks and Wall Street, one segment of the population that at that time was spending $1.1 trillion could have done it and had hundreds of billions left over. And the US government could have relaxed. So the question is, how do we get rid of the games, get a playing field that is about people, and start making this money? Because that's what it's about. Dr. Yvette.
Thank you for the title upgrade. I've played one on TV, but I am not a doctor.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Fowler, on that. But just on the last session, the last speaker talked about AI and he used a healthcare example showing how an algorithm just did all the wrong things, talking about humans in the loop. He talked, you know, all the things that we've heard about, and he showed you an example of that in action. But when you think about marketing today, it's not one marketer. Marketing departments, don't get me wrong, probably took a hit, right? You know, and so now you got this one person, maybe an analyst or was an analyst or played one on TV, whatever that is, now leading the marketing efforts of your organization, and you probably want them to use AI, right? Because they can do stuff faster, you know, increase their productivity, right? So you don't need a team. So now you got Susie, Becky, Jimmy, John, whatever. From their perspective, building a marketing campaign. But if they've never had to put water in their cereal because there was no milk in the house, if they don't understand the reference of government cheese, how can they hit a market who's now a CEO of her third startup? And I got money to spend. Check the shoes. Right? So if that one person isn't looking at the world in a view that includes everyone that doesn't look like them, it comes across as performative, right? We all know on Amazon.com, like, I'm not, look, this out there, Google it. There's all these fake marketed drugs, right? You have the original from an organization. They redo the label. You know, they do something a little bit different, and everything inside of it is just placebo. And you're tricking people. This is what marketing has turned into today. So as companies, my question back to Dr. Fowler is just like, all right, so you've been in from, you're like the OG, right? So you're the OG of marketing. You've been there, you know, when it wasn't a buzzword, and inclusivity and diversity and DEI, right? Before it became politicized. So fast forward from then to now. When you see a marketing campaign, you mentioned PepsiCo, very great example. But when you see a marketing campaign, you know, like, what's the tell that they missed somebody, or someone wasn't in that meeting, someone was included in that conversation? What's your tell? Like, any example that you have?
It's glaring. A problem with television today, whether you watch cable, whether you watch live television, you see it in the commercials, okay? I have very sensitive hearing. So I speak languages, and because of that, I hear words actually the way they sound. And I want you all to listen. Me and Yvette. Me and Yvette. Have you been hearing "and" in commercials? I know you have, because now so that and that's not natural for all communities, you see. And I watch television, and I'm looking at them. They're spending revenues for marketing, advertising. They're using, you know, for lack of a better word, different looking people. Okay, a person is a person, you know. And I'm just going to pause a second. My question is, if the person is a person of color, why does it reflect the color movie? Why does it reflect the color book? When other communities write, it's just a movie. It's just a book. Think about that. You know, oh, this is a black book. I didn't know blacks had races. Wow, colors, what? This is a black movie. Oh, I didn't know. I thought it was just people. You have actors, you have actors. You know, I'm the kind of guy that looks at BET and says, where's WET? Where's the other BET for the brown? Where's the YET? Okay? People from the Mediterranean are olive skin. Where's the OET? It doesn't make sense. You see, I'm an analytical thinker. So when I look at that, going back to the way that they're using language in commercials, they want everyone to be the same. Everyone is not the same. When we can promote, market, go forward authentically, just let people be who they are. Because when their community sees them, that's when you get your buy-in. If I sit up here and okay, that might be the way the people who in corporate want the commercial to come across. But the people you want to connect to are not going to receive that. And if I sit here and tell you, then imagine how many other millions see the same thing. So this is the silly stuff. We just have to be real. And is and. It's not and. It's just and. So anybody sees this, you know, tell your marketing people, stop doing it, because it's not authentic. Let people who say and say and. Let people who say and say and. And that's about one of the best examples I could give right now.
I will now be listening to commercials a little more attentively. I kind of try to scroll through them. Okay, anyway, so same question, but I'm going to answer it. I'm going to give you guys an example of what resonated with me. And so my husband watches Super Bowl, like he watches football, is what he will, babe, this is for you. We are a Packer household. We only watch Green Bay Packers, and we only support Green Bay Packers. Okay. But we do watch the Super Bowl. So he watches it for the love of the game. I watch it for the freaking commercials, right? Not so much for the halftime show. Well, Kendrick Lamar. Anyway, not so much for the halftime show, but really, really for the commercials. Like, I stay up really for the commercials. And I can tell you the commercial that was authentic, original, didn't feel icky, right? Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts. Ben Affleck, Matt, Dame, like, it was hilarious. Hilarious. No one stoked anything, right? Them just being them. Boys from South Boston talking like, get some like Jenny on the block, give me some, right? This awesome, amazing, authentic. Touched on their real stuff. Unfortunately, they're not together anymore. But Ben came back, did another Dunkin' Donuts commercial, and it was still great. But those are great examples. When you see the flip side of that, some of the Old Navy commercials where the people are dancing, right? You know, the new stuff they're doing on TikTok. You know, like okay. Like just think about those things when you're got your one person and ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whoever to build your marketing campaign. Is that representing the market you want to attract, and who are you excluding? Those are just like some of the questions that literally I watch commercials like who approved that? Like, how is that on TV? Mm-hmm. Okay, so Dr. Fowler, you told us about your experience. You've kind of given us like insight from back in the day in the 80s and 90s, and I'm dating myself. Lotus Notes.
Lotus Notes, yes.
Okay, 80s, 90s, you kind of give us examples about what we're seeing today, why you kind of left corporate America, okay. So here's a question that I want to ask you that you can kind of, if there's any CMOs, chief marketing officers, anyone who's in marketing, head of marketing, in marketing, what's the one thing that they should do Monday? I'm not going to say Friday because it's going to be a travel day. Monday when they get back to the office, that would actually change how their marketing gets created.
Start being authentic with the target markets that you want to reach. And that is what makes the change. Communities see authenticity. And see, you have to understand, we are no longer living in the world where you're lucky to have a job. We're living in a world where organizations understand that they're lucky to have the people with talent. Today's consumer, today's individual is a more aware, is a more consciously aware and growing community of people. Now, you know, being the boss doesn't mean anything. If people don't like, they quietly quit, and then that's that. You don't. We have a new generation of people. They're looking for authenticity. For you to show up authentic, for you to have authenticity driving through every process in the organization. And don't misunderstand this. This is not a this color against that color against, no, it's none of that. It's recognizing that, you know, in the United States, we are Americans, and that's it. If there was an invasion tomorrow, all of this foolishness would be ended. We're Americans, and this is our unity. So if you understand that you're marketing to people and you be authentic, I have a philosophy. Making money is a byproduct of great human relationships. And I'm going to end it there.
I think authenticity is great, but not everybody can bring themselves to work, Dr. Fowler. I mean, like, come on, like it was big with like people in belonging. Bring yourself to work, be authentic, just all that. Yeah, that's great. You know, until somebody shows up in like, you know, cool outs in a crop top, right? Like, you know, like there's, you being authentic is not safe for everybody. And I'm saying that as a black woman, okay? I'm not in corporate America for several reasons. Microaggressions are real, right? So being yourself, people wanting to touch your hair. To them, they're being authentic because this is new, I've never seen it. But boo-boo, I'm not a dog and I'm not a panda, right? So this like I'm gonna push you on a little bit on this, Dr. Fowler, because telling people, hey, bring me authentic, yeah, because you're gonna have people being knocked out at the water cooler. You know what I mean? Let's be more prescriptive, right? I mean, okay, I'm gonna keep it real. Like, it's a small group, it's just us friends and family. So look, being authentic, what does that mean? That means that the world does not revolve around you. That means that just because it didn't happen to you, that doesn't it didn't exist. Okay? So that means that you don't know it all. You have your perspective.
Absolutely.
Right? And your perspective is your perspective.
Yes.
And a feeling is not a fact. So if you feel the need to touch my hair, the fact is you're going to get knocked out. That's the fact. Right?
Fair enough. Fair
okay,
enough.
right? So let's keep it real in that sense. It's like I didn't come all this way to give y'all platitudes and stuff. Like, what can they do on Monday? Right? It's like, really look at your marketing campaigns and your materials in a way that is not your rose-colored glasses. It's not your Sunday dinners. It's not where you go, what conversation with what higher power you have. How does this expand your brand, increase your bottom line, get more clicks, people on Instagram? What is that, right? And it's not that you know it all. And I'm telling you, Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT ain't gonna help you. Why? Because if you don't know what to ask it, it's gonna give you back what you think you put in, right? So you're just like, God, give me an authentic marketing campaign. For who? For what? From what perspective, right? So that would be my takeaway. Look, I'm not in marketing, but I know if an ad came out like that Dunkin' Donuts one, very original, I didn't feel anybody was playing, trying to be something that they're not. I know for a fact that Matt and Matt and Ben are from South Side of Boston because I went to Tufts University. They do talk like that, right? Harvard Yard, talk to college, like it is real, right? So none of that seemed performative to me or fake. So use that Dunkin' Donuts commercial as an example. That was Matt, that was Ben. Best friends when Matt moved into the neighborhood when they were like 8. Friends since then. Use your marketing campaigns from that perspective. Nothing on there was fake.
Now, let me interject here.
Okay.
Now, being authentic is the right model, and Yvette is absolutely correct. Now, in that scenario, okay, you're talking about issues with boundaries, okay? This has to deal with boundaries, the way people approach you, the way people treat you. And see, the thing is, we teach people how to treat us, okay? People don't just walk up to you and start touching your hair.
Oh, yes, they do, Dr.
Okay.
Fowler. Like,
We
gonna healthily disagree.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Let me tell you. They do.
Well, let me finish. Now, having said that, you do have some people that need to be taught. But just like she said, if a person does that, she's going to knock them out.
Okay.
Well, that is teaching. This is not how you treat me.
And that's probably not why in corporate America, because you can't punch out your colleagues, right?
And that has to do with boundaries, okay? Establishing boundaries. And the first off, when you're dealing in corporate America, you expect people to be professional. Just going and grabbing people, touching on, that's not professional. I'll give you an example of what happened to me. I was in Mexico. I invited a company, potential supplier, all right? So a gentleman of another community, we were out networking, walked up to me with this big smile, pointed at me with his finger and said, "And how did you get this job?" Okay? I looked at him and I smiled. I locked in eyes with him. I'm an Air Force veteran. I don't get intimidated. I looked at him. I said, "See that man over there?" And he yeah. I said, "You see that lady right there?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I'll tell you what." I said, "You go over to them and ask them the same question." I said, "If they give you an answer, I'll give you an answer." You see, you have to be comfortable in your own skin, first and foremost. You have to teach people how to treat you. Don't cry. You see, my thought leadership is different. A lot of people talk about bullies, but bullies are teachers. Bullies start in childhood because childhood is where a lot of lessons have to be learned. And I know there may be people who disagree, and I respectfully accept that. But when one child starts bullying another child, the universe wants that child who's being bullied to awaken to his or her strength that they're at that moment not aware of. Because bullies stop the moment you step up and say enough and push back. But as long as you keep getting pushed, that's the universe saying, come on, there's something in you, stand up. There's something in you, stand up. And I know a lot of people won't agree with that. But that's why the lesson is done in childhood, because bullied kids grow up to be bullied adults. Okay? They get in marriages that are bullied. And I don't want to touch on, forgive me, this may be a little bit uncomfortable. But it's a cycle that runs through life until a person finds the strength in them and stands up and says, I'm not going to be treated that way. Okay? And that's what has to happen. Now, when you come into circles and you get these people who are not professional, well, those are different cases that you have to deal with. And I'm very glad that Yvette and the young woman there spoke up and said, oh, yes, okay? I have had people do things, but I've always been very diplomatic and strategic about how I operated, There was a man of my community who was introducing another man of my community. We were in the office, and he walked up behind me. Now he was in the military, and at that time, I was already out, but he was still in. He walks up behind me, puts his finger, and says, stick up in my back. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you doing? I'm thinking to myself. So I said, okay, you want to play games. You obviously don't understand. I'm a martial artist. So I spinned around, and I just did this. I didn't touch him, but I just did this. Nobody saw it. But I taught him a lesson. I said, don't ever forget that I'm a military veteran, brother. So if you're going to rob me, just remember that. So what I was really doing, and you may say, wow, this guy is aggressive. No, I was very easy with it. But my message to him was, don't come into my office because I'm from New York. You assume that I'm some, former street thug. No. And I'm teaching the new guy. You see what I just did? Don't come to me like that. I'm a professional, and I'm only going to be treated like a professional. And if you don't, I'm going to push back. So boundaries, teach people how you want to be treated, and respect other people. Benito Juarez, the former president of Mexico, many years ago, said something. El respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz. The respect for the rights of others is the peace. That's the baseline. When you show up at work, that's the baseline. Respect the people on the team. And even though, a team was very different when I started out, anything, two ladies in the coffee shop is a team today. Respect the people you're interacting with.
I got thoughts, but you know what? Look, everyone's perspective is their perspective. I'm going to give Dr. Fowler that. At the end of the day, I am the CEO of my own company. I'm a co-founder. This is my third. I was an executive at AWS. And I don't need to walk in the room with a badge or a name tag. But I'm always asked to get coffee or take notes. So, and that happens today. So most people, they see Yvette Schmitter on an email, they get surprised when they see me on the screen, right? They don't expect this on the other side. It's the reason why I didn't change my name from my first husband, right? Because I like that, right? It's a tell for me. So respect, hear it, but what can these people do on Monday, right? Like, actually, what can they do on Monday? Let's just bring it back to that. Any questions out there? Because I know we've been chewing the fat for a bit. My only thing I would want to say is, look, I gave the Dunkin' Donuts example because I thought it was very authentic.
Hey, it's a great example.
But that would be my 2 cents is for someone who doesn't drink Dunkin' Donuts.
I don't either.
Right? Doesn't drink Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I really like their commercial. And if I was a Dunkin' Donuts drinker, that would make me double down and buy more Dunkin' Donuts coffee. So any questions from the room on any ideas that you might think that a person can do starting Monday to make their marketing more inclusive? I know that's a banned word, but I'm going to say it, more inclusive. Look, it's a $5 trillion market. We got money to spend. I'm just going to say it's bad business if you don't want any of that, right? Because who don't want parts of $5 trillion? I'm like, give me 1%. I'm good. More shoes, right? So, like, think about it that way, right? You know, it doesn't got anything about that. It's like money. We live in a capitalist society. If you read Sam Altman's Visage on the policy on AI, he talks about it. It's like it's bad, but it's good. Okay, money, money, money. $5 trillion. How do you want your piece of that? In a way that they stay a customer, a client, they keep coming back. How do you get your piece of that $5 trillion market? Who ain't always on TikTok or Instagram, who may not be the person you think that you see riding a bus or walking down the street, right? All those things from your worldview, from your perspective, doesn't equate to what that whole entire market looks like. So my challenge to you all, if there's no question, is to think that way. The world is my world for how I live in it, but if I want to sell my shit, and if I want that piece of that $5 trillion market, it ain't about me, right? It ain't about who I think this is. It ain't about what I see on TV, in the movies, or whatever, or some talking head on some YouTube channel, right? Like, what is that market, and how can I get a piece of it so they stay my clients and customers? So you mentioned Pepsi. So when I tell you that PepsiCo is making a stance that is more on what's right and what's wrong, so they pulled out of the concert that was sponsoring Kanye West in the UK, right? Principal moral reasons. Pulled their sponsorship. So if you wanna not be performative, like put your money where your mouth is. So they probably didn't get a refund, right? But then you're gonna have to take our stuff down. They might got a little bit of money back. But just think about it. They went that far and said, we're not gonna support this. Bye. And they weren't the only ones. See, that's not being performative, right? It's just about good and what's right and what's wrong. So, my little ditty for you all, because I know we should probably get off this stage, is this, yes, diversity has been weaponized. DEI has been weaponized. It's literally on the banned list of the other 476 words that you cannot use about equity and inclusivity, diversity, marginalized, all bad words cannot use. It's been politicized, right? So, but that $5 trillion of that market, that ain't politicized. It is the cold, hard, green cash. So my wish for you all is to think about, how can I get a piece of that? How can I get a piece of that $5 trillion market here in the US? How can I get a piece of that? That's what we'll leave you with.
I agree.
Have a good day. We're getting the crown
Thank
off.
you.